Good, Alba?
We're good.
All right. So thank you so much, Chief and Town Manager Lasday, for joining the evening with Elizabeth. You know, the goal of doing these meetings is, to increase transparency and give the town members the capability to, learn more about leadership, ask questions if they want to, and just better understand kind of the motivations and the people that are helping run the operations day to day. And, for my purposes, and I know I've said this to both of you, I think that there are, three really important positions that we have. Obviously, every position is important. Everybody needs to show up every day doing their job. But in terms of like creating culture and, setting the stage for how the town actually operates and what the mentality is of our staff when they come in every day, really, your two positions are the two keystones, right? And so I think it's important that we give everyone the opportunity to better understand you guys. We as council members have the capability, we're involved in the interviews and we get to see all of the background information, and we really get to lift up the hood and better understand the individuals that the town members are entrusting us to put in these positions. But I think a lot remains for people to learn about you guys and your perspectives and what your goals are. So I kind of first want to start, and maybe we'll do ladies first. What interested you in coming to Bay Harbor Islands? Besides boredom, right? Because you were so bored, nothing to do.
No, it's a very beautiful community. It's very special. And when I first saw the placement for the position, I was in Florida at the time. I immediately drove here that same day, even though it was the middle of March, I think, when it came out, or early April. And you were basically stuck at home, but I got in the car and just drove through the town, and I just felt at home. I just felt like it was a good fit for me. I love the ambiance. I love the sense of community. I seen people walking and some people wearing masks. I saw different police cars, in different corners, and it was just, when I drove through, I just thought, this is perfect. And I actually went home that day and I started filling out the paperwork for the position.
Thank you. For myself as well, one of the main reasons that my husband and I decided to move here, and we moved here a week before we had our twins, was the neighborhood. You had the school, you had the safety, you had the neighborhood policing. There was a sense of community that lived here, and I could see myself feeling comfortable being home alone with my kids. I could see myself putting my kids in their carriage and walking them around and going to the different parks. And the parks looked very different back then. I mean, we've done a lot of work, and actually I was not on the council when the 98th Street Park was approved, but been a lot of work done in community services and creating community spaces, and more to be done. But those were things that really resonated with me as well. Chief, what brought you to Bay Harbor? Why Bay Harbor?
Well, I love challenges. No. Okay.
Missed out here then.
Yeah. I found the place. So a couple of things. I'm a native. Well, I consider myself a native. I've spent, I would say, the bulk of my adult life in South Florida. Grew up here, and I really, really love this community. And Bay Harbor Islands presented itself as an opportunity. I thought, wow, how great it would be to work in such as has already been stated, an idyllic community that is so closely knit and has such a history. I really felt, and still do, that based on my background and the things I've done, that I think I could really have a positive impact, and that this community could have a positive impact on me. So I think it's a mutual thing. And I really, when I had the opportunity, when I saw the ad, and I read about the community, and I learned more and more about it, it really, really interested me. Having served as a chief of police a few times, I've never served in a community quite like Bay Harbor, and that's a good thing, because I've generally served in bigger agencies, which is fine and for what it is, but to be in such a small agency really gives you an opportunity to really do that community policing piece, which I really love. And I think that that's kind of one of the main things that drives me to Bay Harbor, because I really want to do that reach out, that get out in the community, have the time to actually meet the people and get to know their first names and get to know about them. And that's why I really think that Bay Harbors is a great fit for me.
Thank you. You know, when we spoke, I feel like one of the things, and you just brought this up right now, that, you know, we talked about was really the nature of community policing, right? And how important our police force is in creating the culture of this community, right? But for me also, you know, my background is in mental health. I work in an ancillary service provider for mental health, and I have for a long time. And, you know, I work in data analytics. So for me, I always love how the math either bears or doesn't bear things out. And I know, you know, we've talked about how being a police officer is more than just enforcement, right? It's when there's a familial crisis, you generally are getting that phone call, you know, and how important it is how those circumstances are handled, and part of laying that groundwork of confidence and trust. And I loved, you know, not just now when you brought it up, but when we were speaking, you brought up how important, you know, how it all ties together, how, you know, how we are enforcing and how we are policing and what our presence look like and our demeanor looks like really affects, you know, how not only the police are utilized, but, you know, really the nature of the community.
Right.
So I appreciate that. So now I want to do like what I call them the threes. So you guys went through the interview process, you did all the forums, you know, and then the prize was that here you are now, right? So before you even walked in the door, what were the 3 priorities that you kind of came in thinking, these are going to be my top 3 priorities when it comes to Bay Harbor Islands? Chief, do you want to go first on this one?
No, I think we should always let Maria go first. No,
Just the standard ladies first.
yeah, absolutely. No, no, absolutely. So my top priorities coming in, and my top priorities are still the same. And the number one priority, I've already talked about it, is community policing, building on that trust, that the community trusts in us and sees us as an agent for good in the community, and that we're not just, as you stated, an enforcement piece, but we're there to actually be a part of the community and improve upon the community overall. That's number one. Number two, the other thing I would like to do is to look, the police department I came into is a fine police department. I'm not going to say anything derogatory about it. It's a fine police department, but just like anything else, I look to improve the agency and modernize some of the things that are in the agency and continue to build on the work that's already been done, but to kind of bring us even further into the 21st century. And then lastly, my goal is to develop the people that work for me. It's great that, you know, we come into a place and we do our job, but it's really important that we develop the people who are underneath us so that eventually, because we don't live forever, and quite honestly, I don't plan on being here for 30 years. I hope I haven't shocked anyone, but I want to develop the next generation to follow and to build on hopefully a positive legacy that I leave behind. So those are my top 3.
Thank you.
For me, I love the sense of community here. That's really important to me. And so one of my goals is to really look at all the community programs that are being offered, or the way the police department is structured, everything about a sense of community, what's going to bring us together, and really evaluate those programs and how can we improve upon them and how can we add to them and reevaluate and make sure we're always moving forward and we have the most creative ideas and we're all speaking to each other so we can keep improving upon those ideas. So just the sense of community here is so incredible. It's really important for me that we maintain that and we continue to improve upon that. That's top priority for me. A second priority is infrastructure. I come from a strong background of understanding infrastructure and getting grants and improving stormwater issues. So some of the issues I saw here when I was researching the community lended to my strengths, and getting grants and doing water projects and getting rid of flooding issues. And not that I've seen that much here, we've seen a little bit, but I know if you get major storms, it could be a lot worse. So my goal was to make sure I completely understand all of our infrastructure system, making sure that we're always improving upon it. So if there are some major storms, we can ride through it okay, and that the water recedes quickly. You know, that's one of the reasons why the council just approved a stormwater master plan, so we can assess everything. It's really important to really assess your infrastructure and keep improving upon it. And if we need to, with growth, to increase capacity of some of the systems, or if they're outdated system, make sure we replace them. But we just always need to have a real good pulse on what our current infrastructure and system is, and whether or not it can be improved upon, and whether or not we need to get grants to help pay for some of the expenses that are associated with those additional costs, especially since we have a causeway. You know, are there opportunities to get federal funding for some of the projects that we need to do to maintain it in excellent form? So that's the second priority, is really assessing all your infrastructure system and making sure that's always top notch. And if there's room for improvements, that we get in a 5-year capital plan and we start planning for it. And with that, also making sure that we have a strategic planning process and a budget process that incorporates the views of the residents and the elected officials. So we're all on the same page. So staff understands what's needed, what are the priorities. And then when we do create that budget and that 5-year capital plan, we have buy-in and everybody understands where we need to go. So that's kind of related to that second priority, I guess. And the third one is also understanding your current staffing and who's in place and what they do, and how can we improve upon current processes internally. What do we need to do to become more efficient, especially with COVID and a decrease in revenues? We really need to make sure that every single thing's being evaluated, everything's running to maximum levels in terms of efficiency, and if they're not, how can we improve upon that? Are individuals in the right roles? Do we need to reassess how things are being done? So do we have the right technology? If we have technology, is it being utilized properly? So really going in and taking a deep dive into each department and seeing how everything's structured, and does it make sense? Is it where we want it to be? If not, how can we make it better? So those are my top 3 priorities. They all are kind of long-winded, but they all include a lot of different facets. But the good news is I have been making progress in all those top 3 priorities. Hopefully that answers your question.
It does. And I love that in both of your answers, it started with, you know, improvement of community, building upon the community that we have, bringing the community together. And I love that there's always a component of process improvement. And I agree that, you know, we live in a world that's full of change. And, you know, I want to wake up for myself personally every day and say to myself, how can I do it better? How can I approach this situation better? You know, before we got on, I was talking about how I have a child who just doesn't want to eat, you know? And so like, my thought is, okay, how can I move this along? How can I engage him to eat? How can I get him to understand, you know, that his body needs certain things? And it's the same sort of thing that I think I hear you guys talking about of, well, let's step back from this for a minute and ask ourselves, is this the best that it can be? And if it's not, then let's build a roadmap to get ourselves there. And I love that there's not a fear of change just for change, right? We do want to cognitively move towards change. We want to consciously move towards change. We want to make sure the change that we're employing is necessary and that it's actionable. But let's not be afraid to change just because it's change, you know? And I love that there is this lean in mentality now, which I think is just it's so important to continue to move forward. COVID aside, I mean, I think COVID is just like the crack rock, you know, that has pushed a lot of this stuff to the front. I mean, it is, right? It's moved everything exponentially more so. But in truth, even if there wasn't COVID, we can always get better. So you answered some of these. Feel free to add on to it. Now that you've had your time to assess, what are the 3 biggest challenges that you feel that we have right now in Bay Harbor? And feel free to say COVID is the first one, if that's the correct answer.
So who's first, Chief?
You want to rock, paper, scissor it? See,
Wow, Maria. Why do you throw me under the bus on that one?
Well, no, I would say that maybe we could expand on this. I'll start with the first one, and you're going to want to tag team on this one. The first one I would say is mask enforcement. Okay. You know, trying to keep our numbers down and try to keep people safe. I really think that's a serious issue because we want to keep people safe in the community, and we want to abide by the CDC guidelines. And that's the most important thing right now, is to keep everyone in the community safe and try to ride through this until everyone's vaccinated. Would you agree that's a priority, Chief? What would you say
Yeah,
to that?
no, absolutely,
That's a
boss.
challenge.
That is definitely a challenge. If I could just kind of peel off of that in the same category, COVID mask. So a lot of times what we're finding, at least from my perspective, is unfortunately a lot of the folks in the community don't necessarily know what the rules are. So that's okay. And sometimes folks coming from outside the community don't know what the rules are, and we're consistently educating people. Over the last 30 days, I can tell you that the police department has distributed 309 a mask to individuals. Just say, hey, young man or young lady, you're not wearing a mask. Did you know? And then kind of educate them and give them the mask. We've issued 309 just in the last 30 days. And in addition to that, we've, I don't want to say violations, but we've documented 532 instances when people were not wearing masks, and once we made contact with them, they put the mask on. So we're dealing with that, but we don't want to become the mask police either, because what we do is that's part of our job, but it's not our sole job, and we don't want to get into a situation where people all of a sudden are afraid to approach us because, oh my goodness, it's the mask police. So we don't want to do that. But by the same token, we want to make sure people are safe and that they're abiding by the new normal mandates. So it is a challenge. And the bigger piece, again, to me, is communicating what we're doing in order to address those challenges. Because a lot of times people get frustrated. They'll see somebody walking down the street and they'll go, oh, he doesn't have a mask on. Why aren't the cops stopping him? Why isn't he wearing a mask? Well, here's the thing. We are trying the best we can to tell people to put on masks and to ultimately put on masks. But at the end of the day, and I'm going to be very blunt and honest, if Mrs. Smith doesn't want to wear a mask and I've asked her to wear a mask, the next step would be for us to write her a civil citation. And if we need to do that, then ultimately that's what we'll do. But we preferred not to, because the rest of the county, and we've joined with the rest of the county, has tried to do this in a positive way, understanding the kind of crisis we're going through as a community. So I would definitely go with Marie on that is a huge issue for us. And we just want the community to know in large. And it's not just the police department. Other members of our staff are going out there, engaging people and asking to wear a mask. We are doing everything we can to address this issue. And I just want to make sure people understand and know that.
I think, taking a quick stop, the mask issue, right? It is probably, if not currently, the most amount of phone calls and text messages that I get. It is top 3 for sure. And I think you make a couple really good points, right? And I think we've been having this dialogue for a period of time, but it's also important that the people who are listening, the community, understand that, because what I get is, well, why don't, if we cite them, what's stopping them? What's, not making people wear masks? And I think that there's an important point to make here that, and Maria, correct me if I'm wrong, but the governor essentially said that, he put a hold on enforcing the compensation of the citation. So we can write a citation, but right now we can't collect upon that citation. And
That's
so it has created a system where, for lack of better terminology, the citation is not worth the paper that it's written on, right? So for me, it becomes a plea, which I feel like we've had consistently since March, is, it's a mask. If it does nothing other than provide another person confidence, because you don't have the faith that it does what we feel it does and science says it does, right? It's a courtesy. And I tell people, listen, whether you believe in COVID or not, or you believe in that the masks work or you don't, at the end of the day, I respect you, my fellow neighbor, enough to wear a mask on the off chance that it may be helping you, and at minimum to show you the respect that you, my neighbor, I feel you deserve. And that I think is a fair request, regardless of what your backed belief system is, to just say, listen, can you show that respect to the person who is near you? I also want to point out that I have personally experienced where I've been somewhere, I've been walking my dogs, and the officers hand out the mask, and the person takes the mask off as soon as the officer's done, and puts it on their wrist or in their pocket. And so, it's a real request that we're making. I understand that, especially as it gets hotter and it feels like we're walking on the surface of the sun, that the mask is not the most fun thing to wear. And I tell people, whether I'm running, whether I'm working out, whether I'm jogging outside, I wear a mask. And I think that it's our responsibility to set that example that, this is the commitment we're making to each other. This is the commitment we're making to get our lives back to another place. And I'll say this last thing, my husband and I have talked about this, and I said, in other cultures, they wear a mask if they have a cold. If you have a cold in Asia, you wear a mask out of a sign of respect for other people. And I have to tell you, I love the belief at this point that I feel like I may be wearing a mask for quite some time. I mean, I think that, it stands for something that I really feel confident in, but I appreciate that. So what do you think number 2 challenge that we have is right now?
Again, it's related to COVID. I would say finances, because you don't have the same kind of traffic in the business district. You don't have the same kind of revenues coming in. You don't have the same kind of causeway traffic for the tolls, the sun pass. You just have to really look at everything and really be careful what we spend, being very conservative, making sure what we do it extremely efficiently. And also we try to maximize technology, if that can help everybody to do their jobs even better. So to really just taking a holistic approach in everything with a reduction of revenues to really make you really be as efficient as possible. And I would say the third biggest challenge, which is kind of related, is keeping the staff safe. You want to provide good customer service to our residents, but at the same time, got to balance that with keeping the staff safe. So, we're having people come in by appointment, or we're trying, one of the things we're trying to do is improve technology so the residents and visitors, if they need to deal with SunPass or with parking passes, do as much as they can online. So we can keep people from coming into town hall for their safety and for staff safety, just really finding that balance to try hard to provide that white glove service at the same time to try to keep everyone safe. So a lot of the real challenges today are COVID related. The community is beautiful. There's a lot of wonderful, wonderful things about the community. And I can't say, I just absolutely love being here. I love living here. It's fantastic. But a lot of the main challenges, I really feel they're very much COVID related. But with that, it's an opportunity to make things better, to make things more efficient, and to maximize the technology that you have, and maximize the talents of your staff.
Chief?
Yeah, so kind of very close, just a different perspective, very close to what Maria talked about. My second largest challenge kind of falls under the same umbrella, because we have this huge elephant in the room that's COVID, and then on the other side, we're saying we want to do community policing. That creates a challenge. As an example, Pizza with a Cop, very popular program here that's been defunct because of COVID. Other programs, the bicycle rodeo, great program, way to get out there in the community, get young kids involved, to know the police officers, give them some safety tips. But again, COVID. So dealing with that challenge is something we're trying to do, thinking outside of the box to try to come up with a way that we can still have that one-on-one connection and follow CDC guidelines as we do it, so that we don't put, most importantly, the community, but also staff in a predicament where they become ill or something happens that we don't want to happen, obviously. That said, we're developing a program that we're hoping to put out in February, which will be a modified Pizza with a Cop and also a modified bike rodeo for the kids. So those are things that when I got here, I knew were going to be a challenge because of COVID. And we sat down with staff and we tried to kind of brainstorm the best way we could do this and do it in a way that again, follows the Florida Health Department's guidelines and CDC guidelines. And I think we've struck a really good balance. So that may be coming out fairly soon. And then part two of that, or part three of that, I guess, would be the communication piece is a challenge because of the first two things we've discussed, COVID piece, and now talking about the community policing piece. I want to get my message out to folks, letting them know what we do, what things we're involved in. And we have great people at the city who help us get that message out, but there's nothing that replaces that one-on-one conversation that I can have with a citizen, or one of my officers can sit down and talk to a citizen. Unfortunately, officers right now are, and with good reason, don't necessarily want to sit down face-to-face with a citizen, because they don't want to put that person into a bad situation. And obviously they don't want to expose themselves to that either. So unless it's a call for service where the officer needs to do what they need to do, it's going to be a challenge. So we're working on all those things. And again, they all spring basically from the COVID challenge. Those are my three big challenges right now.
That sounds, thank you. So you started to hit on this as well, but what are the future plans that you have for Bay Harbor Islands? And you can pick three as well.
Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors this time?
No, I'll take it. I'll take it this time. All right. So the big three for me are, again, being able to go out and do the community policing piece in a safe way and still have that interaction with the community, and do it. We're going to start small. Like I said, I think I mentioned 2 programs that we're looking to do here very shortly within the next month, which would be Pizza with a Cop, and which would also be the bike rodeo. Doing both of those programs in a safe way, and then getting people to feel a little bit more comfortable maybe with doing these things, albeit in a very different way, but still doing it and having that conversation. The second part of that is to develop a, I guess, for lack of a better term, a walk and talk with the police chief. We haven't gotten there yet. I'm not really sure how we're going to do that, but we're working on it, and we're looking at best practices from a medical perspective, from a CDC perspective, and looking at ways that we can get folks, maybe in the past it used to be coffee with the chief or something like that, but if we maybe do it outside and we walk through the community and we have a conversation using social distancing and using masks, maybe that's a way that we can maybe touch more people and get that message out there. And then lastly, and I talked about this, is us either through training or through technology, getting the message out in a more powerful 21st century way. And again, we've got great people that are staff in the city who do a great job. I just want to be able to give them more tools and more assets to be able to get our message out. Because the things we're talking about right now, I'm pretty sure if you were to ask the majority of our community, hey, did you know the cops wrote 309 or issued 309 masks, and they wouldn't know that. And maybe if we could get those messages out to members in the community, maybe you and Maria and others wouldn't be getting these messages and these emails. So that's a challenge. We really have to figure a way that communicate with our folks, keeping in mind that we have the COVID looming over us. So those are my 3 big ones.
Thank you.
I guess one of my future things I would love to see is actually have snow day. Get to know the residents, just be relaxed and mingle. And, I live here, work here, just really get to know the community without, COVID. I mean, we may also be wearing masks just to be safe, but to not be so scared to go out and have more than a few of us together. And, it would be nice to be able to go have a barbecue and just talk to people, concert in the park, just have that real sense of community back before COVID, where everybody was afraid to be together. So that's something I really look forward to. And I guess one of the other things I still would like to do that I haven't been able to completely do, everything's been by Zoom, is just to get out and meet our neighbors and our elected officials in person and develop those contacts. So if we want to get grant funding, I know who to go to, who to ask. And a lot of that, you need to develop those relationships. Who can we partner with? You need to start creating those relationships to help us with other communities, we can maybe, attach to be part of their programs or get some of their ideas. You can only do so much via Zoom. I think sometimes you need those face-to-face meetings and to really help understand what's out there. What else can I do for the community that's better? Is another idea. And a lot of that you get just by going out and you mingle and you talk to people. What are you doing in your community? What are some of the things you're working on? What are the things you're thinking about doing? You need that time, but that person-to-person communication really goes far versus everything by Zoom. It's just not the same. So I guess that would be another thing. A third thing would be how, what other technology can we bring in to improve the customer service element of the town even better in all department levels? What can we do? What can we bring in that would make the experience even better for our residents? So I think those are a few things that's kind of off the top of my head that I can think of.
No, and I appreciate both of them. I don't think people realize that March of 2020 was set to be one of our most community services that we had slated to have. And we really were loaded through March and April, on our calendar. And, we've been working on things like a big truck event, bringing in big trucks where kids could, touch the big truck, see a fire truck and get on the fire truck or touch it. And, I know that like I've brought up before, like doing group dog training, and like we were really cooking, and working on a lot of things, and those things we haven't put them on. We haven't decided we're not going to do them. They've just been put on hold. And I think, once we get to the point where we can start having these events, I agree. I look forward to seeing community come through, and have that closeness again. So we're in the countdown, guys. Don't worry. I'm gonna throw in my 2. We're gonna do the 3, 2, 1 now. So tell me 2 things that the residents of Bay Harbor Islands don't know about you.
Go ahead, Maria.
Yeah, I saw that, Chief. I saw that.
Do you want to go or do you want me to go?
Oh, okay. You want me to go? Okay. 2 things they don't know about me.
That you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. No. Believe me. So I am a certified FBI bomb technician. I did that for a long time with the federal government. I worked on bombs. So that's probably something you guys don't know about me. What else?
My
something
son
fun.
thinks that's very cool.
Well, thank you.
He's just outside of this. Go here. You can come sit.
Hey, buddy.
He thinks the bomb technician thing is like super rad.
Cool. Come on. I'll show you how to put together an IED someday. Come on over. I'm kidding.
Teach him how to disassemble it.
Yeah. What else can I tell you? Blah, 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 blah. Oh God, what can I tell you? Oh, okay. Here's something you guys didn't know about me. I graduated. I'm a paladin, and I graduated from South Plantation High School. For any paladins out there, if there are any out there in the islands, I doubt it because we're kind of lower socioeconomic, so maybe not. But I'm just saying.
We're the tale of 2 cities here. People don't know. They see, the $10 million mansions on the water, but I have to tell you, I get just as many phone calls from people who are not sure how they're going to pay their rent. And that was even before COVID. Yeah. When COVID first hit, right around April or May, when the unemployment benefits weren't, kicking in, and there were all those issues with the system. And I still get emotional when I talk about this. I had stickies down the side of my office of people who needed assistance with services and didn't have enough food, and just like their life was disassembling in front of their eyes. And so I think that's something that people don't always realize about Bay Harbor is that we have these multi-million-dollar condos and these $10 million homes, but there's also a core group of constituents that, their Social Security is not enough, or, they work full-time or they have 2 jobs and they still just can't feed their kids. And I love that you gave the opportunity to have that conversation here, because look, the majority of people, I consider myself exceptionally fortunate,
I wake up every day and I always say, like, I'm grateful that, there's food in my house and my kids live in relative security, and they have a police force that if they need something, they can call 911 and someone's going to come to their house and actually help them. There's so many blessings that we have. I just recognize that that's not the way that it is for everyone, and so, yeah, I mean, it's something we talk to our kids about too, that we're very, very fortunate. But that, yes, interesting that you're a South Florida native. Love that. Maria?
You might be surprised to hear I was actually a nerd as a child. I used to memorize chess books and scrapple books.
Wait, have you watched The Queen's Gambit?
I literally know every 3-letter word and 2-letter word and words that begin with Q. That was what I did for fun. I used to memorize the Scrabble dictionary. So I have friends that I play with all over the world with friends, and I just love the words. So I can tell you, I don't know what they mean half the time, but I could just come up with words and all the time. And so as you've seen with my reports, I just I could write all day long. So that's one thing. I'm kind of nerdy in that sense. I'm sure the chief is surprised to hear that.
I am.
The second thing is I'm actually a very avid tennis player. I used to play very competitively for years and years and years. I won regionally for the Virginia Slims tournament. I used to play 5 hours a day all the time. Unfortunately, now work gets in the way and I can't play as often.
Can you just stop for a second? The Virginia Slims sponsored a tennis tournament.
Yes, exactly.
But it's so delicious.
Well, in Chicago, they had the regional championship in Chicago with Billie Jean King was there, Chris Everett, all these high-powered women were there. It was pretty cool. So, and I made it to the last match. You had to do 3 tournaments in one day, which is a killer on the body. And then my muscles snapped on the last match, so I didn't get to a nationals. But it's okay. So anyway, I've always been an athlete. I used to race cross country. I love to, as the chief knows, I walk everywhere. If I have to call people, I walk. You see me walking around the neighborhood with my phone as I'm getting my steps. I'm always walking. I'm always about fitness. So that's kind of my passions. I love the word and I love to exercise.
That's awesome. God bless. And now Chief, she had the benefit of answering that question second this time. So we're going to switch it around this time. This is the last one. And this is the one thing. When their days are done at Bay Harbor and you're ready to move on, you've got your staff where you want them to be, you feel really good, and you're pushing off for the last time, what's the one thing you want to be remembered for?
That I cared. That I cared about the community, that's something actually when I left Bannockburn, that's one thing everyone said was that my heart and soul was into the community, that I always try to do the right thing, move it forward, and that I left it a better place. And I hope when I decide to leave Bay Harbor Islands, hopefully it's not too soon, that they'll know that I truly cared and that I put my heart and soul in trying to constantly improve upon things and make things a better place for everybody.
Thank you. All right, Chief. She gave you some time on that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, right. You kind of played that backwards on me.
Sorry. Will we do this again for real?
Yeah. All right, thanks. So when I leave here, I want to be remembered as, I'll explain what I mean because the word has different connotations. When I leave here, I want to be remembered as righteous. And what do I mean by righteous? I want people to say, he was fair. He was on top of it. When people needed him, he was there. He would have given everything for this agency and for this community to prosper, to do better. That's how I want to be remembered. If that can be my legacy, then I feel I've done something successful in the area. And wherever I've left before, I'm not, and let me not play myself up because that's not what I'm trying to do. But my point is, that's the way you want to remember. You don't want to be remembered as a guy that was selfish, that was there for his own benefit, that didn't really help anybody, that just took. I want to leave there and I want people to go, yeah, man, he was a righteous dude. That's how I want to be remembered.
Well, I can tell you just in the short time of working with both of you that I think you guys are on the path for that. I mean, I'll speak for the community, but I speak for myself. And one of the benefits of being on the council and being a public servant is you get to see under the hood. And you get to see under the hood of who's really showing up and who's really doing things for the right reason and who really cares. And, who's really putting in that extra percentage when they don't feel like it and when it's not easy and when the work is not glamorous and when the conversations aren't fun. And I have to tell you, I really appreciate the work that you guys do. You both came in at a very tumultuous time in many different ways. And you came in, to a community that in a lot of ways was struggling, right? Struggling with identity, struggling with change, struggling with COVID. And you found a way to start to really make it yours and start to really make it reflect the potential of what this community can be. And so, on behalf of the community, I just want to thank both of you for the work and the time and the effort and the care and the compassion that you've been putting in. And I look forward to the realization of the community through your efforts through the future. So thank you so much. And thank you for coming out and doing the Evening with Elizabeth. I know that there's nothing you'd rather do on the last Wednesday night of the month. So I get it. But thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. I'm sure I'll be speaking with you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.